what's up, everyone? How y'all doing? This is Boss, and it's great to welcome you guys to the
Basin, the
Basin,
basin, the
Basin with
basin,
Boss and
and
EJ.
EJ.
Get on the bus here. All right, I'll be excited to welcome you guys to join us. We had like a wonderful time that talking about pivotal moments in our lives that kind of shaped my experience from high school, how that has molded me. Where it wasn't the best of experience, but it also, as instead of me being in that place of victimhood, that challenged me to use that as a
Yeah.
stride. So I went to college with so much stride, so much excellence that I still like dwell on my. You're like, why do you talk so much about my
I
college
know.
years? Why do you? Because that's where I had so much experience. That's where I was in leadership. I was leading student government. I was a vice president. I studied abroad. And it was from a place of like, I pushed myself to the limit of how much can I do. And that has led to who I am because I could still live my life as in high school, being a fair, being feeling traumatized and isolated and removed from
You
everybody.
use
So
that for the
I
better.
used that for the better. And you were talking a lot about your experience. You started with, I have no life
I
experience.
don't
It
think I
was all
did.
incremental and iterative. You've been agile now. But but then, you were talking about your music and just you and I met in New York.
Yeah.
But I went through the whole process even before we
You
got
did.
married.
You went through all the
Um,
process with me. That's true. You've
and
been here
then
forever.
I've been around the block.
No, you've not been around the block. You've been with me for a long time. You've
I've
not been
been
around.
around the block.
That means a lot
I've
of
been
things,
around.
babe. You've
I've
not
been
been
around.
around the block.
No, but I truly feel like there was so much grace upon you,
Yeah.
and just being with you is like there's so much grace. I feel like even before I married, I'm like I'm marrying a star because I feel
Aww.
like not because of your music. It's just like there's a lot of things I just feel like you're engraced for. And when
Thank
you were
God.
doing your music, there were so many people around, so many guys and girls that they wanted to be part of it. Even
That's true.
people from college, like the
Everywhere.
university fellowship, they wanted
That's
to
true.
participate. They wanted to sing.
That's true.
They even wanted to dance.
I
And they
know.
had a dance group. They came to your church, and you spoke. You made it. You sang at various church, like big
So a
churches.
lot of people don't
All
know
for
about this. So let me
yeah,
back it up.
yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't like to talk about it because I feel like I'm reliving days I don't want to think too much about because I feel like that becomes like the highlight of my life, and it's not.
It's one of the high life.
It's one of the highlights, but I don't want to
I
hold on
like I
to.
like the high life. High life is a music.
I don't want to
True.
hold on too tightly to something, but I'm
I
gonna just
like it. I
like talk
like.
about
Yeah.
the. So in 2013, I started in the first episode saying that in 2013, 2009,
Yeah.
2010, I started leading the worship team at our church, at my church in New York. And I was so grateful to the pastor then that they allowed a young teenager lead a worship team that had adults in
And
it.
how old were you then?
I was I
17.
was I was
I think you were
17, 18
17.
then when I
Yeah.
started.
And you
But
were leading a lot of people who were all older
they
than
were
you.
older than me.
Yeah.
But I feel like after during that period, when I stepped into that role, more and more people started coming into my life. And that was when I met the producer who produced my first album.
Yeah.
And I realized that as I stepped into this position of leadership, why I say that my life has been full of God's grace is because the right people just kept coming my way. I found a producer and he said, okay, I'm going to produce an album. And me saying yes to creating an album led to more people coming, like friends, people come. So I feel like whenever I think of New York, I just think of, I'm very grateful.
I think
I
of New
really am.
York. I think of the Bronx. No, I'm just kidding.
I just
So
think
I
of,
am grateful. I
I'm
am grateful
grateful. I'm
for
grateful for love. I'm grateful for
yeah.
family. I'm grateful for that a young
Yeah.
girl thought about an idea like, oh, let
Yeah.
me. No one has ever said, EJ, you can create an album and you can release a music. But I said, let me try it. And the Lord brought a producer. And I released the album. And then a swarm of people from churches just supported me. And I just feel like so grateful that even right now, we were saying it earlier that whenever I visit New York and they're asking, when is your next album? I'm just like, wow, Lord, 10 years later.
Yeah.
And these people are still holding on to the memory of what I released 10 years
You
ago.
need to get back
I
into
need
it.
to get back into it. But
Yeah.
also another thing that I feel like the Lord has been stretching me, and why I don't, maybe I try not to hold on to pivotal moment, because more recently, as I think about this period in time in between 2009 and 2014, everything I was doing with music, my heart is all about music. I don't know, God put this desire for worship in me that I desire it. But I also feel like as the Lord has been working in me, He wanted me to not hold on too tightly to the one thing I loved.
Mm.
And I was holding on so tightly to my love for music, my love
Mm.
for singing, my love for leading worship,
Mm.
that the Lord was taking that away from me.
Mm.
The Lord, the more I held it on, the more He took it away from me. And I'm so at peace where I am right now that
Mm.
a part of me is hesitant to jump into it fully head on. That's why I'm taking it little by little,
Yeah.
because I realized about the past 5 years being in Arizona, not in New York, that I didn't know when I had formed my identity around being a singer, being a worship leader, and just being everything music artist. And when I am not a music artist, I feel like I'm failing. I struggled with that the first few years of being here,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And the question is, why? Why should I? Now I know that, well, why? Why do I need to be doing this? I can look back to 2010, those period of time when I released the album and I was singing in multiple churches and traveling to Nigeria to sing. I can look back and say, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I pat myself on the back like, wow, you did that all before you got married, all
Yeah.
before you had kids. And I'm so at peace right now with not doing it. I don't desire to do it, but I'm gradually gonna get back to it, because I feel like the Lord is leading me back in that place.
It's easing you
Not
into it.
Yeah, not because I feel like I miss anything.
Yeah.
But once upon a time I felt that way. And I don't want to ever hold on to something that, oh, I need to be doing this to the extent that it begins to rob me of joy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I don't want to call that a pivotal moment in my life. I think it was a moment that I'm grateful for. But if it doesn't happen again, I won't shed a tear about it. I'm just like, okay, thank you, Lord.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, it says in every season is new every morning. And I just feel like a lot of times the Lord is not done, but He brings in, He revamps or reinvents every season in His way. Any other pivotal moments that you can think of?
I think another pivotal moment in my life that has shifted me, we talked about it in the last episode, is when we got married and we started trying for kids. That was a
Mm.
pivotal moment for me, because I had to wrestle with God in a way I never did. I felt bitter towards God, because I was like, this shouldn't be happening to me or for people. You know what I mean? I'm like, what have I done to deserve this? So I think for me that was a pivotal moment. It wasn't a physical thing that anybody, it was me wrestling with God. And then when we had the miscarriage, that was a pivotal moment in my life. I feel like the way
Yeah.
I handled it was that I wrestled with God.
Yeah.
I wrestled with God, like, what is this? Why am I going through this?
Yeah.
I should be enjoying my first few years of marriage. Why me? This is not it.
Why am I in a
Why am
situation
I?
where
What have I?
I'm trying to have kids? I'm in a place or,
Yeah,
doing so many things,
yeah.
for work.
So I feel like, why? I kept asking so much, why? But babe, I can't tell you how much God responded in those moments. I told you when we had the miscarriage, when I was driving in the car. And the last time we talked about fertility, I was crying. Lord help me. But I was driving in the car, and I told you this, right? When the Lord was like, I don't know what I was still in the Lord, just praying. And then I heard this thought in my mind. So how are you going to respond? I was like, what? I was driving, and that day it was like, I was just praying, God, what's going on? Why? And I just heard that voice. So how are you going to respond? And I told God, I'm going to mourn the loss of this child. Here I am again, babe. I'm like, I'm going to mourn the loss of this child for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm not going to mourn anymore. And that really shifted me. I feel like it kind of like built my relationship with God, whereby I don't want to lose it. That's why I talk about God a lot more, because I'm not, nothing matters more than my walk with God. Because in those moments of my life, I realized that when I was doing music, why I don't hold that, why I try not to hold on to that, is that when I was doing music a lot,
Yeah.
I didn't have this intimacy with God, babe. I
Mm.
sang, I sang all the beautiful songs. I did really well. I gotta say that. I'm not bragging, but I did really well. But I didn't have intimacy with God.
You didn't have quiet
I didn't
time
have
and
quiet time. I was
the word.
constantly on the go. And a
Yeah.
lot of artists, as amazing as they are, they are losing their intimacy with the Father while they are singing about God. And all that God wants from us is intimacy with Him. So that's why right now I do everything to steward that before anything else. So if you ask me my beautiful moment, I feel like God brought me to Arizona to just teach me intimacy. And it's something that you will never, as a Christian, you will never get to the point where you've learned intimacy. It's a lifetime growing. I don't think I've even achieved the second of it.
Yeah.
If I look back to the times that I think are beautiful, I don't want to, if I, once I go back to music again and I start releasing songs, I don't want to be that girl. I want to release songs that flow out of my time with God. So that when I go to anywhere and I sing this song, they see someone who is singing about a relationship, not just singing about, oh, God is good, He has done me well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So honest, if I think of pivotal moments, it's like one really amazing time and then two really horrible times. But those have shaped me right now to who I am today, because who knows what good or horrible thing would happen in the next couple of years? No one knows the future.
Every life has its peaks and valleys,
Yeah,
and honestly, it just can't be the peaks all the
it
time.
cannot.
It cannot.
It cannot. And as
So
Christians, we always want to think everything's going to be great. It's
yeah,
not.
the sense of call and the reality of your life,
It's two different
sometimes they're
things.
two different things. Some people it happens, and there are people that sometimes you have the sense of call. Like I know I'm created for more. You know, one of my quotes is by amidst, and I remember when I was in college, I put it as a quote. People started laughing. I put it on my Facebook status, and it's kind of like, "Give me a place to stand, and I will shake the world." And something like somebody was like, "Oh, there was that sense of drive and sense of call, like for more." You
Mm,
can't lay hands on what that more looks like. And I
yeah.
remember in college, I would wake up and my heart would be so stirred up. My
Mm,
heart was just so stirred up, so strong. There were even times it would be so stirred up, I won't be able to sleep.
mm.
I won't be able to sleep because I was like, what exactly this is?
I think it's
What
right.
exactly is it that I am called to do? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And that steered me to do like, I feel like, yeah, leadership. I did study government and the faith. And sometimes you're like, is it a pastor? And God's like, I'm directing your step and it might not be exactly as what you think it should be,
Yeah.
but I am molding a character inside of you. And those
Absolutely.
pivotal moments for you, or even pivotal moments at valleys. I mean, for you was
For me,
trying to have kids, and it's funny. My brain does not default to that
as a
period.
woman, I do. You're a man. That's why when I hear about, I'm very passionate about like supporting women who are going through infertility and miscarriage, because I remember it. And I feel like we need to talk about it more. That's
Yeah,
what I'm going to say. We need to talk about it more.
yeah, and talking about it just being real, and I know it's being politicized now. Unfortunately, people are trying to own it. It's not the perspective you want to hear,
Yeah.
but you need the right people to talk about it and say things with grace
Yeah.
and season it with the grace of God, as well. And those things, I mean, who we are right now, and we're not even at the end of everything. I mean, it's still, we're in a different phase of life. We're raising kids, we're nurturing that,
Yeah.
and for them, they're creating new experiences of what does their pivotal moment is going to look like. And right now, what we hold them is love, affection,
Safety,
presence, safety,
security.
yeah, psychological safety, physical safety.
Yeah.
Because I look at it as you get older, it's so easy to get disconnected from your kids. Sharing my experience in high school, going to a new culture. So if that was my experience, but my kids won't have to experience that because we grew up here. We know
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
we're also very intentional
Yeah.
in knowing our kids
Yeah.
and being just making sure we're cultivating where they can feel free to talk to us. And I hope that's who they grow up to be. Anyway, it's excited, I think, talking about the pivotal moment. So it's good to have you guys. Thanks for joining the Basin podcast.